Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're decoding the complex healthcare alphabet soup by following the fascinating life cycle of a single medication. We're going to track it literally from its birth in a laboratory all the way to the checkout counter where Medicare handles the costs. It's this massive, invisible web of regulations, safety checks, and financial tiers. By the time we're done, for sure, you're going to see your medicine cabinet in a whole new light. Here is our roadmap for today's Explainer. First, approving new medications. Second, real-world medication safety. Third, preventing healthcare errors. And finally, navigating Medicare and costs.
Section 1. Approving new medications. The birth of a drug. Let's introduce the FDA, the ultimate gatekeeper, ensuring new drugs are safe and effective before they ever reach the public.
To get that FDA approval, an investigational new drug has to survive a seriously grueling timeline. Phase 1 alone takes months. Phase 2 can span up to a couple of years. Phase 3 takes several years of massive clinical testing. Only after getting through all of that does a manufacturer even submit a new drug application. And notice Phase 4? That's a whole different ballgame. That only kicks in post-approval, once the drug is already out there in the real world.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer attrition rate. It is wild. Only about 33% of investigational drugs even make it to Phase 3, and it makes total sense when you break it down. Phase 1 is under 100 healthy volunteers just checking basic safety. Phase 2 bumps up to hundreds of people who actually have the disease. But Phase 3 is where the patient pool drastically expands to thousands of people in multiple settings. The goal there is to finalize the exact dosing and catch those rare side effects that just wouldn't show up in a tiny group.
Within the FDA itself, there's a subtle but super important split. On one side, we have CDER. They act as the watchdog for traditional chemical drugs and their generics, publishing what's known as the Orange Book. On the flip side is CBER. They handle the rapidly growing, incredibly complex field of biologics and biosimilars. Think vaccines and advanced therapies. Their list is published in the Purple Book.
Section 2. Real-world medication safety. Monitoring the medicine cabinet. This is where we transition from the controlled environment of clinical trials into the total unpredictability of post-marketing surveillance.
So the drug is out there hitting millions of people. Suddenly, incredibly rare side effects can pop up. To catch these, the FDA relies on MedWatch. It's a 100% voluntary reporting program designed for both healthcare pros and everyday consumers. But here's the catch. It operates as a critical safety net for severe, unexpected issues. You wouldn't use this to report a well-known side effect like constipation from morphine, but if a drug unexpectedly causes liver failure, absolutely. That data lets the FDA issue urgent safety alerts, force label changes, or even recall the drug entirely.
For some medications, the risks are just so high right out of the gate that standard monitoring isn't enough. Enter the REMS program. Think of REMS as a VIP bouncer for high-risk medications. It requires specific, mandatory tasks called Elements to Assure Safe Use, or ETSU, to be completed before a pharmacist can even legally dispense the drug to you. Let's look at two specific, memorable examples of REMS in action. Take the acne medication isotretinoin. It has a program called iPledge because it carries a risk of severe birth defects. It mandates strict pregnancy testing before every single refill. Then there's the schizophrenia drug clozapine, which has a rare risk of destroying white blood cells. Its REMS require strict, routine blood monitoring. Yes, this adds extra work for pharmacists and patients, but it provides absolutely crucial, life-saving boundaries.
Section 3. Preventing healthcare errors. Inside the hospital environment. Because, despite strict FDA regulations, human error in administering drugs is still a major challenge.
Let's move our narrative into the hospital setting. Drugs are administered by humans, and humans make mistakes, right? When a major error occurs, it's called a sentinel event. This is the absolute worst-case scenario in healthcare. We're talking catastrophic, unexpected occurrences, like amputating the wrong limb or a fatal medication error. When a sentinel event happens, it triggers an intense, immediate review to figure out exactly what went wrong. But how do hospitals actually fix these errors without terrifying their staff into hiding mistakes? Well, the Institute of Medicine drastically shifted the industry from a toxic blame game to a system upgrade mentality. They call it just culture, and it is a massive paradigm shift. By not punishing the individual healthcare worker who makes an honest mistake, you encourage 100% reporting of errors. And if you have all the data, you can actually identify and fix the underlying system failures.
When a root cause analysis identifies a systemic issue, hospitals need a tangible process improvement tool to fix it. They use the PDSA cycle. Step 1, plan, identify the exact problem and drop a blueprint. Step 2, do, implement those changes on the floor. Step 3, study, analyze the data to see if the fix actually worked. And Step 4, act, decide whether to continue, modify, or scrap the plan and start over.
And this brilliantly illustrates how catching near misses fuels organizations like the ISMP, or the Institute of Safe Medicine Practices. It's a nonprofit that relies entirely on voluntary reporting. When a hospital catches a mix-up, they report it, and the ISMP publishes alerts nationwide to stop it from happening elsewhere. A great example is their vital list of look-alike, sound-alike medications, which warns staff about drugs that have wildly different effects but easily confuse names or packaging.
So, who holds hospitals accountable for all this safety stuff? That would be the Joint Commission, or TJC. They evaluate and accredit healthcare organizations. Hospitals actually voluntarily undergo these intense, unannounced surveys every 18 to 36 months. Why volunteer for a stressful audit? Because it's highly prestigious, and more importantly, it's often a prerequisite for receiving insurance payments. They evaluate everything from medication safety to formulary management, and they publicly track quality measures using their OREX initiative.
Section 4. Navigating Medicare and Costs. The checkout counter. Let's transition to the final stage and demystify how the government pays for healthcare and regulates costs.
Medicare is a highly compartmentalized alphabet soup. Part A is your hospital and inpatient insurance. Part B covers outpatient care, durable medical equipment, and doctor visits. Part C, or Medicare Advantage, lets private plans bundle things together. But for our medication journey, Part D is the absolute cornerstone. It's the prescription drug coverage that actually dictates what patients pay for their pills. Let's move to and see how this builds into actual out-of-pocket costs. Medicare Part D plans use a tier system to pass on costs. Tier 1 represents generic drugs, the cheapest option. Tier 2 jumps up for preferred brand names. Tier 3 pushes expenses even higher for non-preferred brands. And sitting at the very top is the specialty tier, which is the most expensive of the whole shebang.
But hold on, all of this infrastructure relies on one massive assumption, that the medication is actually sitting there on the pharmacy shelf. So we really have to ask this critical question: what happens when a drug simply runs out?
We are currently facing an escalating modern crisis of drug shortages. Surprisingly, the FDA tracks these and finds they're usually caused by manufacturing quality control issues, not a lack of raw materials. Manufacturers run their lines at maximum capacity, so if a facility goes down, there's no backup plan. The ripple effects are severe. It delays care, forces the use of unfamiliar alternative drugs, which massively increases the risk of medication errors, and it forces hospitals to create resource allocation teams just to make grueling ethical decisions about who gets the last remaining vials.
And that brings us to the end of our drugs life cycle. From the FDA through REMS monitoring, past hospital safety protocols, and navigating Medicare tiers and drug shortages. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought. How does your own health literacy impact your ability to navigate this invisible regulatory matrix? Because understanding this complex system isn't just healthcare trivia. It empowers you to make better, safer choices at the pharmacy counter. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.